It's yet another video that's pretty badly lit. I want to talk about something which I believe wholeheartedly could quite easily save America economically. America runs a little bit different with its thought patterns from Australia. A lot of yous have been force-fed a lot of, shall we say, very hardline capitalist stuff. A lot of it pushed by globalists, people who are quite willing to use sweatshops and some of the things I've heard from that involve people in Hong Kong, stuff that's borderline slave labour almost, or almost literally, bonded labour. So, America's in a hell of a state. How do you fix it? Well, I could say it in one word, but I won't. Not yet. Quite simply, you hear a lot of stuff about China, and it's good for the consumer to have cheap stuff. It's good for the consumer. It's good for the consumer. Yeah, okay, it's good for the consumer. But they're not really looking at the problem in a correct light by just looking at the consumer. It's almost like those people that sit there looking at cows and go, cows are carbon producers, cows are carbon producers. Hang on a second. When I was 13 and in year 8, they taught us in science that you can't get carbon atoms or any other atom of any kind to appear from nowhere. They told us about the alchemists in the 1500s who used to believe that there was gold in their piss because both things were yellow, and they would spend a lot of time trying to extract gold out of their piss, usually by boiling off their piss in the hope that it would allow powdered gold to be left behind. Now, that carbon that the cows are releasing has to have come from somewhere. It has. Cows don't produce carbon full stop. 1 tonne of carbon dioxide a year is absorbed by 1 acre of grass on average. Those cows then eat that grass and re-release some of that carbon. Yes, it is in a different formation, as in it's a different compound, but the carbon didn't come from nowhere. So the cows didn't just produce the carbon, something absorbed that carbon from the air, and then the cows re-released it again when they ate that something being grass. Now it's very much the same looking at all this Chinese cheap stuff and going, it's good for the consumer, it's good for the consumer. But hang on a minute. How are you going to consume anything if you got no job, you got no money, and then you can't buy it? You can only be a consumer if you have money to be able to buy those things. In order to have money, you must be first a producer. So you have to be a producer and create or earn something yourself in order to be able to get those goods and become a consumer. So you need to be both a producer and a consumer. And they politely ignore the fact that if you're not a producer, i.e. have a job, you ain't going to have money to consume. So it doesn't matter how good it is for the consumer, because the consumer also must be a producer in order to be a consumer. So, how do you fix it? Well, contrary to popular belief, Chinese don't work for a bowl of rice a day, as the saying goes over here. It's not $1 a day either. It's not even $1 an hour. They reckon it's about US $2 an hour as of several years ago, like about 5 years back. I was reading this from a British bloke who had a factory in China. And there's a pretty easy answer. Once upon a time, a man known as Mr. Ronald Reagan decided to knock America's tariffs from 27% down to 3%. That was great for the consumer, but not much else. You can't compete with these people. My brother-in-law gets these little screen covers for his iPhone. He gets 10 of these screen set covers sent over from Hong Kong for less than I can send a damn letter to Hong Kong. Work that out. It pays for the screen covers getting here and the actual sending of it is less than what I can send a damn letter there for. It doesn't even make sense, but that's what's going on. Furthermore, there's a friend of my father's who is reasonably high up in a bolt manufacturing factory, and he had been making bolts for the engines, like actual head bolts for engines for General Motors Australia, also known as General Motors Holden. And they said, look, we've had another offer from someone in Thailand. Can you meet this, or at least better it? At least meet it, preferably better it, but we just want you to see you at least meet it, because we like you as a supplier, but these blokes are cheaper. So they showed him the price, and regardless of the fact that these boys in Thailand are most likely using Australian iron ore and Australian coal to smelt a steel to then go ahead and make these bolts, and we've got to send all that steel and all that coal, all that way, plus they're going to need limestone as well to be able to, smelter that steel. And we have big fancy steel smelters over here which are barely touched by human hands, super duper automated, continuous flow, not batches, not like you see in the Deer Hunter where they do batches. It's actually continuous flow systems. They use the gasification of the coal to heat other areas of the plant, and oh my gosh, it is very high tech. And even though we do these on such a large mass-produced scale, and the iron ore comes from just down the road from where the smelter is, the price these people in Thailand could make these bolts for was less than my dad's friend could buy the raw materials for. You can't compete with these people. The only answer is tariffs. Things are fine here with tariffs on the clothing and footwear industry. And, the white trash that was making these things. But that didn't matter because they had a job and they paid their own way. And then the tariffs were removed. The factories closed. These white trash weren't too enthused about working to begin with, lost their job, and then just have been sitting on welfare ever since. And they might have been white trash, but they paid their own way. Now our taxes are paying for them to sit on their butts. They've been smoking too many drugs for too many years now to have any motivation to get another job again. Plus, they're not skilled, and that's why they had those easy jobs in the first place. So one good thing of tariffs is it keeps the white trash in a job. Secondarily, you're not going to compete with these people. And thirdly, very little known fact. I found this out from my employer at a meeting. The big boss opened his mouth, and you know what he said? If a bulldozer, large piece of earth moving equipment or piece of mining equipment has less than 75% of the parts of it made in Thailand, then they put a tariff on that bulldozer / dump truck or whatever. That's right, a developing country, peoples, who wants to build power stations, dams for water supplies and hydropower, freeways, maybe even a tunnel or two, are going to put a tariff on the very equipment that could build that stuff for them. No joke. Why? Because they want to build their own bulldozers in Thailand and their own dump trucks and their own excavators. So quite simply, they put a reasonably heavy tariff on any of these machines that use any more than 25% foreign parts. In Thailand, they've got a tariff on our gear, most likely US gear. So what the hell is wrong with us putting a tariff on their stuff? Screw free trade. They don't have free trade on our stuff. We aren't allowed to go in there and sell our stuff with no tariffs. They've got tariffs on our stuff. Why don't we have tariffs on their stuff? Because it's good for the consumer. Here we go again, the same old spin doctor crap. Guess what? How much more are you going to be consuming on when you're on welfare, when you're trying to get day labour and, you know, just got enough money for food because you're only getting 5 hours a week work, you know? Bugger it, you know? Stuff all there. It's good for the consumer. They have deliberately sat there as spin doctors and looked at the part that suits them and ignored the bloody rest. Don't believe the lie any longer. Tariffs is what kept our clothing and footwear industry going. It could help a lot of more industries around here, but these politicians that you voted in, they aren't interested in what helps you out. They aren't interested in you. They couldn't give a stuff about helping their own country. All they're interested in is the global agenda of free trade with everybody who can do it a lot cheaper than you can, some who are under borderline slave labour conditions. What you need is tariffs. Simple as that. And all of a sudden, when it's cheaper to make something in America because it doesn't have a tariff, as opposed to bring it in from China, when it does have a tariff, oh, guess what? Factories are all setting up again. Yes, you can get a boring job on a crap wage, but at least you'll have money in your pocket, food in your guts, and you'll go to bed warm again at night with the chance that there will be better jobs in the future coming up, or that you, in your boring job now, if you hang on long enough, you may end up being the supervisor of that factory. But at least there'll be money back in American pockets.